The crack of bone against bone echoed through the dining room as my brother Jake punched me across the face. Blood splattered onto Mom's pristine white anniversary tablecloth. His new wife Amanda had just called me family trash. When I defended myself, Jake snapped. I watched in stunned silence as my parents rushed to comfort him instead of me. Their only daughter stood bleeding, yet their concern was for their son and his trembling fist. I walked out that night with $20 in my pocket, nowhere to go, and the sudden, crushing realization that I no longer had a family. Growing up in our small coastal town in Maine, Jake and I were inseparable. Only 2 years apart, I was the protective older sister who taught him to ride a bike, helped with homework, and defended him from neighborhood bullies. Our parents worked long hours at the local fish processing plant, so I often stepped in as his caretaker. We built sandcastles on the rocky beaches, collected shells during low tide, and dreamed about someday living in one of those grand houses perched on the cliffs overlooking the Atlantic. Viv, will we always be best friends? 10-year, old Jake asked me once, his face serious under a mop of sandy blonde hair. Always, I promised, meaning every word. Our family wasn't wealthy, but we were happy. Dad worked his way up to floor manager, and Mom took on extra shifts during tourist season. They saved every penny for our college funds, determined their children would have opportunities they never did. By 18, I had accumulated nearly $40,000 for college through their savings and my own part-time jobs. Jake, at 16, was close behind with his own fund growing steadily. Then Dad slipped on the processing plant floor, resulting in back surgery and 6 months of recovery. Insurance covered some costs, but the medical bills piled up alongside mortgage payments. I still remember the night I found Mom crying at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills marked in threatening red. "We'll lose the house," she whispered when I asked what was wrong. That night, I made a decision that would shape my entire future. I offered my college fund to keep our family afloat. Mom refused at first, but eventually accepted when the alternative was foreclosure. I promised myself it was just a detour. I would still go to college, just a bit later. I took a year off after high school, working double shifts at the local diner and the hardware store. By the time I finally enrolled in the state university, on a partial scholarship, I was 19 and determined to make something of myself despite the setback. That's where I met Tara Henderson, my freshman roommate and the person who would later change my life. Tall, with curly red hair and a fearless attitude, Tara came from Providence with dreams of starting her own business. We bonded instantly over late-night study sessions and shared ambitions. "We're going to create something amazing together someday," Tara would say, and I believed her. Meanwhile, Jake started college on time, his fund untouched thanks to my sacrifice. Our parents never asked him to contribute toward Dad's medical bills, wanting at least one of their children to have an uninterrupted path to success. I never resented this decision. I loved my brother and wanted the best for him. Everything changed during Jake's junior year when he met Amanda Prescott, the daughter of a wealthy businessman who owned a chain of luxury hotels along the East Coast. Amanda was beautiful, poised, and accustomed to getting what she wanted. She had sleek dark hair, designer clothes, and a way of looking at people like she was assessing their value. The first time Jake brought her home, I noticed how her smile didn't reach her eyes when we were introduced. She scanned our modest living room with a barely disguised grimace before complimenting Mom on how quaint everything was. I tried to connect with her over dinner, asking about her studies in business administration, but she redirected every conversation to herself or Jake. After she left, I gently mentioned my concerns to Jake. "Amanda's just not used to places like this," he defended. "Give her time." Over the next few months, I watched my brother transform. His wardrobe changed from comfortable jeans to pressed chinos and button-downs that Amanda selected. He adopted new opinions. Suddenly our hometown was provincial, and my ambitions limited. He spoke about joining Amanda's father's business after graduation, with plans to finally escape this place. During a rare lunch together at the campus cafe, Jake spent the entire time texting Amanda. When I brought up our childhood dream of buying beach houses next to each other, he laughed. "We were kids, Viv. Time to grow up." Amanda's father is introducing me to some serious players in the hotel industry. That's my future. One evening, Jake called with news that he and Amanda were engaged after just 3 months of dating. I was shocked but tried to sound supportive. "Are you sure this isn't too fast?" I asked carefully. "You just don't understand what real love is," he snapped, suddenly hostile. 2 days later, Amanda showed up at my apartment unannounced. She perched on the edge of my second-hand sofa as if afraid of contamination. "Jake told me what you said," she began, voice syrupy sweet. "I thought we should clear the air." I started to explain I was just concerned about the timing, but she cut me off. "Let's be honest, Vivian, you're jealous. Jake told me how you've always tried to control him, how you guilt him about the sacrifices you've made, but he's with me now." Before I could respond, she delivered the twist that would begin our family's unraveling. "By the way, those rumors you've been spreading about my previous relationships, they got back to me. Trying to make me look like some kind of gold digger was a pathetic move." I was speechless. I had never spread any rumors. I barely knew anything about her past. But when I called Jake to clear things up, he refused to speak to me. He believed every word Amanda had told him, and nothing I said could convince him otherwise. 3 months before the wedding, Jake called with what should have been wonderful news. "Amanda wants you to be her maid of honor," he said, sounding excited for the first time in weeks. "She realizes she misjudged you." Hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe things would improve between us after all. I accepted immediately, imagining helping with dress fittings and planning the bachelorette party like sisters should. That hope died quickly. Despite my title, I was excluded from every aspect of wedding planning. Amanda's actual friends made all decisions while I received instructions via text message about what to wear and when to show up. When I offered to host a small bridal shower with the modest savings from my campus job, Amanda declined. "We've already booked the country club event space," she texted. "But you can contribute to the champagne fountain if you want." The champagne fountain cost more than my monthly rent. The rehearsal dinner was held at an exclusive restaurant where the valet Parker gave my 15-year-old car a disdainful look. Inside, Amanda's parents treated mine like charity cases, loudly explaining menu items as if my parents had never seen calamari before. Dad, dressed in his best suit that was 10 years out of style, tried to maintain his dignity while Mr. Prescott commented on simple folk having simple tastes. That night, I overheard Amanda in the restroom with her bridesmaids. "Can you believe Vivian's dress? It's obviously off. The rack," she giggled. And her parents, Jake, was so embarrassed introducing them to Daddy's business associates. Thank God we can minimize their role in the ceremony. I stepped out of the stall, surprising them all. The bathroom fell silent as I washed my hands. "Amanda, could we talk privately?" I asked, maintaining my composure. "Once alone," I tried reason. "I know we've gotten off to a rough start, but Jake means everything to me. I'm willing to start fresh if you are. We're going to be family." She examined her manicure, looking bored. "Let me make something clear, Vivian. After tomorrow, Jake is my family. You're just the baggage he brings with him. Stay in your lane, smile for photos, and remember your place." The wedding day arrived with perfect June weather. I helped Mom with her hair and makeup, trying to boost her confidence before facing the Prescotts again. Dad kept adjusting his tie nervously. "You both look wonderful," I assured them, straightening Dad's boutonniere. "Just be yourselves." The ceremony was held at the Prescotts' sprawling estate. 500 guests watched Jake and Amanda exchange vows beneath an arch of imported white roses. My brother looked handsome but somehow unfamiliar in his custom tuxedo, his expression adoring as he gazed at his bride. During the reception, I was seated at the far corner of the room with distant relatives nobody knew what to do with. My parents were at a slightly better table, but still notably separated from the wedding party. I watched them trying to make conversation with Amanda's father's business associates, their discomfort evident even as they smiled bravely. After dinner, I approached the head table to congratulate the couple. Jake gave me a quick, distracted hug while Amanda Eyre kissed my cheek. "Your speech is after the best man's," she reminded me. "Keep it short and appropriate." I had spent weeks writing and rewriting my maid of honor speech, wanting to honor my brother while welcoming Amanda to our family despite our differences. I spoke from the heart about Jake's kindness growing up and wished them happiness in their new life together. As I finished, There was polite applause, but nothing like the standing ovation that had followed the best man's raunchy jokes. The night took its devastating turn during the dance floor's peak hour. I was chatting with one of the few friendly guests when Amanda accidentally collided with me, spilling her full glass of red wine down the front of my pale blue bridesmaid dress. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she gasped with theatrical concern as onlookers gathered around us. "But honestly, Vivian, how many glasses have you had? You've been slurring your words all night." I hadn't had a single alcoholic drink, choosing to remain clear, headed throughout the emotional day. "I haven't been drinking at all," I said quietly, dabbing at my ruined dress with a cocktail napkin. Amanda's expression hardened briefly before transforming into mock sympathy. "It's okay to admit you have a problem. Everyone saw you cornering Daddy earlier, practically throwing yourself at him." The accusation was so absurd I actually laughed, which was apparently the wrong response. Amanda's eyes narrowed. "Jake!" she called sharply. My brother appeared instantly at her side. "Your sister is drunk and just laughed about making a pass at my father." The look Jake gave me was like being stabbed. Without question, without a moment's doubt, he believed her. "You would do this? At my wedding?" he hissed, gripping Amanda's waist protectively. "You couldn't let me have one day without making it about you?" "Jake, that's not what happened," I began, but he cut me off. "I think you should leave. Now." Standing there in my wine-soaked dress, publicly humiliated and falsely accused, I made a choice I would both regret and ultimately be grateful for. I walked out of that reception with my head held high, ignoring the whispers that followed me. Outside in the parking lot, tears finally came as I realized my brother was no longer the person I had grown up with. The boy who had once promised we'd always be best friends had vanished, replaced by someone I hardly recognized. For 3 months after the wedding, I tried repeatedly to reconcile with Jake. I sent text messages that went unanswered, left voicemails he never returned, and even wrote a heartfelt letter explaining my side of what happened at the reception. Nothing broke through the wall Amanda had built between us. My parents became increasingly distant, too. Jake and Amanda had given them expensive gifts, a new car, a kitchen renovation, creating obligations my parents couldn't ignore. When I expressed concern that these gifts came with strings attached, Mom dismissed me. "Jake is just being generous," she insisted. "Amanda comes from money. This is normal for her family." The final breaking point came during my parents' 30th anniversary dinner. They'd invited Jake and Amanda, my aunt and uncle, and me to their favorite local restaurant. Nothing fancy, but special to them. I arrived early to help decorate the private dining room with photos from their 3 decades together. Jake and Amanda arrived 30 minutes late. She immediately complained about the restaurant choice. "We could have taken everyone to that new French place in Portland," she said loudly. "This is quaint, I suppose." Throughout dinner, Amanda made subtle digs about everything from Mom's dress to Dad's job. I stayed silent, determined not to cause a scene during my parents' celebration. But when Amanda started describing their recent vacation to the Maldives, deliberately highlighting the contrast between their luxury lifestyle and my parents' modest existence, something in me snapped. "Could we maybe focus on Mom and Dad tonight?" I suggested quietly. "It's their anniversary." Amanda's perfectly plucked eyebrows arched. "I was just answering your mother's question about our trip. Not everyone wants to discuss community college night classes and waitressing all evening." "Amanda, please," I said, setting down my fork. "Just for tonight, can we put aside the status games?" The table fell silent. Amanda's face flushed with anger. "Status games? Is that what you think this is?" She laughed, a brittle sound. "This isn't a game, Vivian. Some of us actually have status. Others are just family trash." The words hung in the air like poison. My parents looked down at their plates. My aunt gasped softly. Jake stared at his wife, but said nothing to defend me. "I've worked hard for everything I have," I said, voice shaking. "Unlike some people who were born with silver spoons and nastiness to match." That's when it happened. Jake stood up so quickly his chair fell backward, his face contorted with rage as he lunged across the table. His fist connected with my cheekbone with a sickening crack. The force knocked me sideways, and I tasted blood immediately. Time seemed to stop. No one moved. Then my mother cried out not my name, but Jake's. "Jake, your hand. Are you okay?" My father rushed to my brother's side, examining his knuckles while I sat stunned, blood dripping onto the white tablecloth. My aunt finally came to help me, pressing a napkin against my split lip. "You need to leave," my father told me, "not Jake. You've ruined your mother's special night." I looked at each of their faces, my mother's tearful disappointment, my father's anger, Jake's righteous fury, and Amanda's satisfied smirk. In that moment, I understood with perfect clarity that I had already lost them long before this night. Without another word, I walked out of the restaurant. I drove to my small apartment, packed essential belongings into my car, and left town that same night. The $20 in my wallet was nearly all I had. My waitressing job barely covered rent and student loan payments. For 2 weeks, I lived in my car, parking in Walmart lots at night and washing up in public restrooms. I couldn't access my bank account because the card was sent to my parents' house, and I couldn't bear to call them. I survived on dollar menu items and the kindness of a church food pantry. When I finally got the courage to call Tara, she was horrified by my situation. "Vivian, get here now," she commanded. "My apartment is small, but the couch is yours for as long as you need it." Tara lived 6 hours away in Providence, where she had started an entry-level marketing job after graduation. I arrived at her doorstep with a bruised face, unwashed hair, and what remained of my dignity. "Oh, Viv," she whispered, hugging me tightly. The physical healing was quicker than the emotional. My split lip mended, the bruise on my cheekbone faded from purple to yellow to gone, but the betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. Tara helped me set up a new bank account, find a job at a local cafe, and eventually secure a spot as her roommate when her previous one moved out. One evening, scrolling through social media against my better judgment, I discovered the final, devastating twist. My parents had posted family photos with Jake and Amanda, celebrating some minor occasion. The comment section revealed the story they'd been telling. "So glad you're all together despite everything with Vivian. Some people just can't control their jealousy. Always knew that girl had problems." My mother had replied to one, "We've always struggled with Vivian's behavior. Attacking Amanda was the final straw. Some people just won't accept help." I stared at the screen in disbelief. They had completely rewritten history, casting me as the troubled child who had always been difficult, who had attacked Amanda rather than defended myself. My entire childhood years of being the responsible one, of sacrificing my own opportunities to help our family, had been erased to justify cutting me off. I showed Tara, who cursed colorfully before taking my phone away. "You don't need to see this poison," she said firmly. "They don't deserve you, Viv. We're your family now." That night, crying on Tara's couch, I made a decision that would define the next phase of my life. I couldn't change my blood relatives or force them to love me properly, but I could build something new from the ashes of what I'd lost. I would create success on my own terms, construct a chosen family of people who valued loyalty and truth, and never again let anyone make me feel like trash. The first year after leaving my hometown was the hardest. I worked 2 jobs, morning shifts at a cafe and evening reception work at a local hotel. Every free moment was spent taking online classes to finish my business degree. Sleep became a luxury I rarely afforded myself. Tara proved to be more than just a friend. She became the sister I needed. She covered my portion of rent during particularly tight months, brought me soup when stress, induced migraines left me bedridden, and never once made me feel like a burden. "This is temporary," she would remind me. "We're building towards something bigger." Late at night, after our respective jobs, we would brainstorm business ideas at the tiny kitchen table. Tara's marketing background and my business studies complemented each other perfectly. We both shared a passion for sustainable fashion clothing that looked good while doing good for the planet. What if we created a line that used entirely recycled or sustainable materials? I suggested one night, sketching rough designs on a napkin, beautiful pieces that tell a story of renewal. Tara's eyes lit up. "Phoenix Fashion," she said immediately, rising from the ashes. The name stuck, though we later refined it to Phoenix Sustainable Apparel. With exactly $4,000 between us, Tara's savings, and my tax return, we began developing prototypes in our living room. I learned to sew from YouTube tutorials, practicing until my fingers were raw. Tara built our brand identity and website, working until dawn many nights. Our first collection consisted of just 8 pieces, simple dresses and tops made from reclaimed fabrics. We photographed them on friends who modeled for free, using neighborhood murals as backdrops. The pictures weren't professional, but they captured something authentic that resonated with our first customers. We started by approaching local boutiques in Providence. Most rejected us immediately. 220, something women with no industry experience didn't inspire confidence. Finally, a small shop owner named Dorothy took a chance on us. "I'll take 3 pieces on consignment," she said after examining our workmanship. "If they sell in 30 days, we'll talk about more." All 3 pieces sold within a week. Dorothy ordered 10 more, then 20 after those sold too. Word spread among the local boutique community about this small, sustainable brand with surprisingly good quality. For 18 months, Tara and I operated Phoenix from our apartment. Every dollar of profit went back into the business. We expanded our line, improved our techniques, and built a modest online presence. Our customer base grew steadily but remained small. We were still very much a struggling startup. Everything changed when we participated in a local artisan market that attracted visitors from throughout New England. Among them was Sarah Donovan, a former fashion executive who had left the industry after becoming disillusioned with its wasteful practices. She spent nearly an hour at our booth, examining every garment and asking detailed questions about our materials and processes. "You two have something special," she told us, "but you need help scaling this properly." Sarah became our mentor and, eventually, our angel investor. She invested $50,000 for a 15% stake in Phoenix, the first outside money we accepted. With her guidance, we secured a small production space, hired 3 part-time seamstresses, and developed relationships with ethical fabric suppliers across the country. Our breakthrough came when a popular sustainability influencer wore one of our dresses in a viral video about ethical fashion. Orders flooded in faster than we could fulfill them. For 3 weeks straight, Tara and I barely slept, packing orders and answering customer emails around the clock. "We need more help," Tara declared, eyeing our backlog of orders, "and bigger space and actual business systems." Sarah helped us secure a proper business loan, find a warehouse space, and implement inventory management software. Phoenix grew from 3 part-time employees to 15 full-time staff within 6 months. Our revenue tripled, then quadrupled. Throughout this period of growth, I tried twice more to reconnect with my family. I sent Christmas cards with personal notes, sharing news of my business success and expressing hope for reconciliation. They were returned unopened. I called my parents' landline once, only to have my mother hang up as soon as she recognized my voice. The final twist in this chapter of my life came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was reviewing fabric samples when my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this Vivian Marshall?" a woman's voice asked. "Speaking. Who's this?" "Linda Marshall, your father's sister." Aunt Linda had been a peripheral figure in my childhood, living on the West Coast. She visited rarely. I remembered her as warm but somewhat distant, perhaps because of the geography separating us. "I've been trying to find you," she continued. "Your parents changed their number, and no one would give me your contact information. I finally tracked you down through your business website." We met for lunch the following weekend when Linda flew to Providence. Over salads at a quiet restaurant, she revealed a truth that shook my already fragile relationship with my parents even further. "Your grandmother Mai and your father's mother left you money, Vivian. A substantial amount. She always had a soft spot for you, saw your potential. She set up a trust for your education and future business endeavors." I set down my fork, stunned. "What are you talking about? I never received any inheritance." Linda's expression hardened. "That's why I'm here. Your parents were the trustees until you turned 25. They were supposed to inform you about the inheritance when you turned 18, with funds available for education immediately. But they never did." "How much?" I whispered, though the amount hardly mattered compared to the betrayal. "Just over $300,000. Your grandmother sold her house before moving into assisted living and split the proceeds between you and Jake. He received his portion years ago. The revelation left me breathless. That money would have paid for my education without sacrifices. It would have given Phoenix a proper launch without years of struggling. Most painfully, it was a tangible expression of my grandmother's love and belief in me, a connection I had been denied. With Linda's help, I hired a lawyer and recovered the inheritance, which had grown to nearly $350,000 through investments. My parents attempted to fight it but retreated when faced with clear documentation of the trust terms and their violation of fiduciary duty. That money became the fuel for Phoenix's expansion. We opened our first flagship store, developed an international supply chain of ethical manufacturers, and launched an e-commerce platform that quickly outperformed our wholesale business. Within 3 years of receiving my inheritance, Phoenix had grown into a multi-million-dollar company with a reputation for quality, sustainability, and transparency. The scared, heartbroken woman who had fled her hometown with $20 and a bruised face was becoming something else entirely, a successful CEO with growing influence in the fashion industry. Each milestone felt like both a personal victory and a silent rebuttal to everyone who had discarded me. 5 years after the night Jake punched me, Phoenix Sustainable Apparel had grown beyond anything Tara and I initially imagined. We operated 3 flagship stores in major cities, sold through over 200 boutiques nationwide, and shipped our products to 26 countries. Our staff had expanded to over 100 employees, and our headquarters occupied an entire floor of a renovated mill building in Providence. Business magazines featured us as a success story of sustainable entrepreneurship. A particularly prominent profile in Forbes included my personal journey from family rejection to business triumph. I didn't share the most painful details, but I spoke honestly about building resilience through adversity. "Success is the best answer to those who underestimated you," I told the interviewer, a quote that would later be highlighted in pull quotes across social media. My personal life had healed alongside my professional growth. Weekly therapy sessions helped me process the family trauma without letting it define me. I built meaningful friendships with people who valued loyalty and honesty. Tara and I remained inseparable, business partners and chosen sisters in every way that mattered. Sarah, our original investor, became a mother figure who celebrated every milestone with genuine pride. Her husband Mark, a retired contractor, often helped us with store renovations, refusing payment beyond dinner and good conversation. They hosted Thanksgiving at their lake house each year, creating new traditions to replace those I'd lost. Aunt Linda moved to Providence after her husband passed away, buying a condo 20 minutes from mine. We had Sunday brunch weekly, where she shared family stories and photos from before the rift. Through her, I maintained a connection to my family history without the active pain of rejection. Despite my new life's fullness, I still occasionally checked on my hometown through social media and mutual acquaintances. This is how I learned that Amanda's father's hotel chain was under federal investigation for tax fraud and labor violations. The Prescott empire that had seemed so impressive was crumbling under legal scrutiny. An old high school friend who still lived in town mentioned seeing Jake and Amanda arguing publicly outside the grocery store. "They don't look so high and mighty anymore," she texted. "Rumor has it they're struggling since her dad's problems started." I took no pleasure in their difficulties, but I couldn't help reflecting on how different my life might have been if I'd remained tethered to their toxic dynamics. As Phoenix approached its 7th anniversary, Tara and I began discussing long-term strategy. The sustainable fashion market had grown crowded, with major brands opting the language of responsibility without meaningful practices behind it. We needed to evolve to maintain our position as industry leaders. "What about vertical integration?" I suggested during a strategy retreat. "Control more of our supply chain, from raw materials to customer experience." This direction required significant capital. We considered outside investors but were hesitant to dilute our ownership or compromise our values for growth. Instead, we secured a combination of business loans and used a portion of our retained earnings to fund the expansion. During this period, I received an unexpected business opportunity. A major clothing manufacturer was selling its waterfront property in my hometown, a sprawling complex that included offices, warehouses, and several acres of undeveloped oceanfront land. The business was relocating overseas, leaving prime real estate available at below market value due to the urgency of the sale. "This is perfect timing," Tara said when I showed her the listing. "We need East Coast manufacturing capabilities, and the location makes sense logistically." The practical business case was strong, but I hesitated for personal reasons. Returning to my hometown, even in a business capacity, meant possibly encountering my family. The thought still triggered anxiety despite years of healing work. "You don't have to decide based on old wounds," my therapist advised. "What serves your present and future self best?" After careful consideration, Phoenix purchased the property. The waterfront complex would become our East Coast headquarters and manufacturing hub, creating over 60 local jobs. I took personal charge of the renovation plans, determined to transform the industrial space into something beautiful and sustainable. During monthly visits to oversee the renovation, I stayed at hotels and limited my movements around town. Providence remained my home and sanctuary. Until one day, reviewing architectural plans with our contractor, I made a discovery that changed everything. "The property actually includes this residential parcel," he explained, pointing to a section of the map I hadn't noticed before. "There's a house already there, a bit neglected, but structurally sound. Previous owners used it as a guest house. The house was actually a 6,000 square foot mansion perched on the highest point of the property, with panoramic ocean views and private beach access. Built in the 1920s for a shipping magnate, it featured classic New England architecture with modern potential. Though in need of renovation, its bones were exceptional. Something shifted inside me as I toured the empty, dusty rooms. This house, looking out over the same ocean I'd dreamed of living near as a child with Jake, seemed like both a completion of a circle and the beginning of something new. "I'm going to restore this place," I decided. Not as a company property, but as my home. For the next 6 months, I divided my time between running Phoenix and overseeing the mansion's renovation. I poured every ounce of my design sensibility into creating spaces that reflected both the home's history and my personal journey. The process became unexpectedly therapeutic, transforming something neglected into something beautiful paralleled my own path. The renovation was nearly complete when I discovered, through business channels, the most shocking twist yet in my family saga. Jake had been quietly embezzling from his father, in Law's company, for years. With the federal investigation closing in on Prescott Sr., Jake's financial misdeeds were at risk of exposure. Amanda knew about the embezzlement and had helped conceal it, using the stolen funds to maintain their lavish lifestyle even as the core business faltered. This information came through a due diligence report when Phoenix considered acquiring a small hotel chain formerly affiliated with the Prescotts. The financial forensics team flagged unusual transactions connected to Jake's department. I immediately withdrew from the potential acquisition, wanting no connection to what appeared to be criminal activity. Part of me wanted to warn my brother, despite everything. Another part recognized that his choices were his own, just as mine had been. I decided to remain neutral, neither reporting what I knew nor interfering with the inevitable consequences. By the time my oceanfront mansion was complete, Phoenix had grown into an $80 million company. I had been featured in major business publications as a self-made success story and invited to speak at sustainability conferences worldwide. The frightened girl who had once slept in her car seemed like a character from someone else's story, connected to me through memory, but no longer defining my reality. I officially moved into the mansion during a crisp October weekend, exactly 8 years after Jake punched me. The timing wasn't planned, but the symmetry felt significant. Tara, Sarah, Mark, and Aunt Linda helped me settle in, filling the grand rooms with laughter during an impromptu housewarming party. Standing on my private deck that evening, watching waves crash against the rocky shore below, I finally felt a sense of peace about my journey. I had built something meaningful from nothing. I had created family from friendship. I had transformed pain into purpose. I had no idea that the next day would bring the past rushing back to my doorstep in the most unexpected way. The morning after my unofficial housewarming, I woke early to enjoy coffee on my ocean-facing terrace. The October air was brisk but not yet winter, cold, carrying the salt smell of low tide. Wrapped in a cashmere throw, I watched fishing boats heading out for the day, their lights tiny and determined against the vastness of the Atlantic. My new home felt both foreign and deeply familiar, the setting of my childhood, but viewed from a perspective I could never have imagined back then. From this hillside mansion, I could actually see my parents' neighborhood in the distance, modest houses clustered around the church steeple. Phoenix's newly renovated headquarters gleamed a mile down the shoreline. Our company flag, Phoenix, rising from stylized flames, fluttered visibly even from this distance. The sight filled me with quiet pride. Not the showy, status-obsessed pride that had characterized Amanda's world, but something steadier, built on actual accomplishment. My peaceful reflection was interrupted by the mansion's security system chiming. The gate intercom had been activated. Curious who would visit so early, perhaps a delivery or one of the contractors finalizing details, I checked the security panel inside. The camera showed a familiar sedan parked outside my gate. Behind it, an older model SUV waited. I froze, recognition hitting me like physical impact. My parents' car. And behind it, unmistakably, Jake and Amanda's vehicle. For a moment, I considered not answering. 8 years of silence, and now they appeared unannounced at my gate? But curiosity overcame apprehension. I pressed the intercom button. "Hello? Vivian? It's your father." His voice sounded older, more hesitant than I remembered. I swallowed hard before responding. "What do you want? Can we come up to the house? We need to talk to you." I hesitated, instinct warning me to protect my hard-won peace, but the same security that allowed me to keep them out also meant I could control the interaction. I was no longer vulnerable. "I'll open the gate," I said finally. "Park in the circular drive." I watched through various security cameras as they drove up the winding road to my home. My father drove with my mother beside him, both looking straight ahead. Jake followed in the SUV with Amanda in the passenger seat, and what appeared to be their 2 children in the back, kids I had never met, born during the years of estrangement. They parked as directed. When they stepped out, I was struck by how time had marked them all. My parents had aged dramatically. Dad's once strong frame now stooped, Mom's hair completely gray. Jake had developed a paunch and receding hairline, while Amanda's perfect appearance had frayed around the edges, her designer outfit from several seasons ago. Most surprising were the suitcases they began unloading from both vehicles. Not overnight bags, but large travel cases and storage containers. They moved with the weary coordination of people who had packed hastily but thoroughly. I met them at the front door, steeling myself for whatever this encounter might bring. Up close, the strain in their faces was even more apparent. My mother's eyes widened as she took in my appearance, successful, composed, clearly prosperous in ways they had never imagined for me. "Vivian," she whispered, making an aborted movement toward me before stopping herself. "Hello, Mom, Dad, Jake, Amanda." I acknowledged each with a nod, my voice neutral. "This is unexpected." An awkward silence followed as we assessed each other. The children, a boy about 7 and a girl, perhaps 5, clung to Amanda's sides, regarding me with suspicious curiosity. "These are our kids," Jake finally said. "Thomas and Abigail." I smiled at the children, determined they wouldn't witness adult hostilities. "Hello, Thomas. Hello, Abigail. I'm your Aunt Vivian." Dad cleared his throat. "You've done well for yourself. The company in town, and now this place. We saw the article in the business journal." "Thank you," I replied, waiting for them to explain their presence. Mom filled the uncomfortable silence. "The house is beautiful, honey. It reminds me of the places we used to admire when we drove along the shore on Sundays. Remember those drives?" The memory of those family outings, ice cream cones, and dreams of someday threatened my composure. I redirected. "What brings you all here? With luggage?" They exchanged glances, a silent negotiation about who would speak first. Finally, Dad stepped forward. "We've hit some hard times, Vivian. The bank foreclosed on our house last week. Jake's business ventures didn't pan out," Mom added quickly, a familiar pattern of making excuses for my brother, and with everything happening with Amanda's father's company. I turned to Jake, whose gaze remained fixed on the marble entryway floor. What business ventures? Investment opportunities, he mumbled. Should have been sure things. Amanda interjected, her voice lacking its former imperial tone. My father's legal troubles affected everyone connected to the company. Jake lost his position when the new management came in. We've been struggling for months. We co-signed Jake's business loans, Dad explained. When the ventures failed, the bank came after our house. We've got nowhere to go. I processed this information slowly, connecting it with what I already knew about Jake's embezzlement. They were telling a sanitized version, leaving out criminal aspects that might still have legal consequences. I'm sorry to hear about your difficulties, I said carefully. But why come to me after 8 years of silence? The moment hung suspended between us, reality slowly dawning in their expressions. They hadn't come for reconciliation. They hadn't come to apologize for years of rejection. They'd come with a specific purpose, one that became horrifyingly clear when Mom spoke again. We saw your house on that business profile. All this space for just one person. She gestured at the mansion's grand foyer. We're family, Vivian. Family helps family. The audacity was so breathtaking that I actually laughed a short, incredulous sound that echoed off the high ceilings. Family helps family, I repeated slowly. Is that what you did when Jake hit me? When you chose sides and cut me out for nearly a decade? Jake finally looked up, anger flashing in his eyes. That was different. You provoked. Be careful about what you say next, I interrupted, my voice quiet but firm. Very careful. Amanda stepped forward, pulling her designer bag closer, as if for security. Look, we know things weren't handled well. But that's in the past. We're in a desperate situation. Then came the statement that truly revealed their intentions, not a request, not a plea for temporary help, but an assumption of entitlement that left me momentarily speechless. We're moving in, Dad announced, gesturing to their luggage, just until we get back on our feet. With a house this size, you'll hardly notice us. The sheer presumption stunned me. After years of rejection, they appeared at my door expecting to move into my home, not as guests requesting shelter, but as entitled family members reclaiming what they viewed as their due, simply because I had succeeded. I stepped back, creating physical distance that matched the emotional gulf between us. You're not moving in, I stated firmly. You didn't come here for reconciliation. You came because you need something from me. That's not fair, Mom protested, though her eyes didn't quite meet mine. We're reaching out, trying to heal old wounds. Old wounds you never acknowledged inflicting, I corrected. Not once in 8 years did anyone apologize or even ask my side of the story. Now that you need my help, suddenly we're family again? Jake's face flushed with anger, that familiar precursor to the night he struck me. You always had to make everything difficult, Vivian. Always the victim. We come here in good faith. Good faith? I laughed again, the sound sharper now. You show up unannounced with suitcases, announce you're moving in without even asking, and call that good faith? The children had begun whispering to each other, sensing the tension. I softened my tone for their benefit. This isn't a conversation we should have on the doorstep. Come inside, but leave your luggage in the cars for now. I led them to the formal living room overlooking the ocean. Floor, 2, ceiling windows framed the Atlantic like a living painting, sunlight dancing across navy waves. Under different circumstances, this reunion might have been a joyful homecoming, a chance to share my success with people who had once been my world. Instead, we sat in strained silence for several moments. The children gravitated toward the window, momentarily distracted by the panoramic view. I know about the embezzlement, Jake, I said quietly, ensuring the children couldn't hear. I know what really happened at Amanda's father's company. The color drained from Jake's face. Amanda's carefully maintained composure cracked, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched her purse. How could you possibly, Jake started. I'm the CEO of an $80 million company, I interrupted. I have resources and connections you can't imagine. When Phoenix considered acquiring properties formerly connected to the Prescott Empire, our due diligence team uncovered financial irregularities traced directly to you. It wasn't like that, Jake protested weakly. I was just moving funds around temporarily. I was going to replace everything once my investments paid off. The familiar pattern of Jake avoiding responsibility, of others making excuses for him, suddenly seemed unbearably sad rather than infuriating. He was still the boy who never had to face consequences, still expecting someone else to clean up his messes. "Are criminal charges pending?" I asked directly. "Not yet," Amanda answered, when Jake remained silent. Daddy convinced the board to handle things internally to avoid public scandal. Jake was terminated with a confidential separation agreement. But if we don't repay certain funds, the implied threat hung in the air. They needed money, significant money, to avoid potential prosecution. And they had decided that I, the family member they had discarded, was their solution. We sat in tense silence as the weight of their situation settled around us. Outside, waves crashed rhythmically against the shore, indifferent to the human drama unfolding before their constant motion. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family had appeared at my doorstep not because they missed me or regretted their treatment, but because they needed the resources I had built without them. "So," I finally said, folding my hands in my lap, "you need money to keep Jake out of legal trouble, and you need a place to stay since you lost your homes. And you came here expecting I would provide both, despite 8 years of silence." My mother leaned forward earnestly. "We're not proud of how things happened, Vivian, but you've always been the responsible one, the one who fixes things. And now you're so successful." "I became successful after you cut me off," I reminded her gently, "after I rebuilt my life from nothing." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Nobody's perfect, Vivian. Families fight, they make mistakes. Now it's time to move forward." "Moving forward requires acknowledgement of the past," I replied. "None of you have even said you're sorry." Jake stood abruptly, pacing before the massive windows. "Sorry? You want me to apologize when you're sitting in this mansion while my children might end up homeless? This isn't fair, Vivian." "You always land on your feet." "I landed on my feet because I picked myself up," I said, maintaining my composure despite his growing agitation. "I slept in my car for 2 weeks after you hit me. I worked multiple jobs to survive. I built something from nothing while dealing with the trauma of being discarded by my own family." Amanda made a dismissive noise. "Everyone has struggles. You clearly overcame yours. Now we need help with ours." I studied Amanda, noting how her former confidence had curdled into something bitter and defensive. The woman who had once called me family trash now sat in my home asking for charity. I turned to my parents. "When grandmother left me her inheritance, why did you hide it from me?" The question clearly caught them off guard. Mom paled while Dad's expression hardened. "That was a complicated situation," he hedged. "We were trying to protect you from making impulsive decisions with that money." "I was 19, working 2 jobs to rebuild my college fund after giving it to save your house," I said. "How was hiding $300,000 from me protection?" My mother burst into tears, not genuine remorse, I realized, but the familiar emotional manipulation that had often redirected family conflicts away from accountability. "We did our best with both of you," she sobbed. "We always tried to be fair." I stood, walking to the window where Thomas and Abigail were still watching the ocean, innocent children caught in adult failures. Whatever I decided, they didn't deserve to suffer for their parents' mistakes. "I'll help you," I said finally, turning back to face them, but not unconditionally. Hope visibly flared in their expressions, quickly followed by wariness. "What conditions?" Jake asked suspiciously. "First, honesty. I want a complete account of what happened, not just with the embezzlement, but with our family. I want acknowledgement of how I was treated 8 years ago and since." Dad started to protest, but I held up my hand. "Second, accountability. I'm not simply giving you money, Jake. I'll help negotiate with Amanda's father's company to avoid criminal charges, but you'll need to work to repay whatever I cover." "Work where?" Jake scoffed. "No one's hiring with my recent history. Phoenix has a financial administration department. You'll start at entry level, Jake, and you'll earn your position based on actual performance, not family connection." Amanda looked appalled. "Entry level? He was an executive." "An executive who embezzled funds," I reminded her. "This is an opportunity many in his position wouldn't get." I continued before they could interrupt again. "Third, Boundaries. I'll help you find and finance temporary housing not here. This is my home, not a family compound. We'll rebuild our relationship gradually, if possible, not through forced proximity. You're turning us away? My mother's voice quavered. Your own family? I'm offering appropriate help while maintaining healthy boundaries, I corrected. Something this family has never practiced. Jake's face flushed with anger. So that's it? You're using this situation to humiliate us? To make us grovel? No, Jake. I'm using this situation to break unhealthy patterns. I don't want your humiliation or your groveling. I want accountability and change. Jake's control finally snapped. You self-righteous bitch, he shouted, advancing toward me. You think your fancy house and company make you better than us? You were nothing when you left town. Nothing. The old Jake, the one who had punched me years ago, emerged fully in that moment, rage contorting his features. But unlike that night, I wasn't caught by surprise, and I wasn't powerless. Security, I said clearly, pressing a button on my phone. 2 staff members appeared immediately in the doorway. Please escort my brother outside until he calms down. Jake looked at the security personnel, both former military, both physically imposing, and seemed to deflate, the reality of his position finally sinking in. This isn't over, he muttered, as they led him firmly but respectfully toward the terrace. In the tense silence following Jake's removal, something unexpected happened. Amanda burst into tears, not the calculated, manipulative crying I'd witnessed from her before, but deep, body-shaking sobs. I can't do this anymore, she wept, her perfect facade crumbling completely. 9 years of lies and pretending and keeping up appearances. I'm so tired. I watched in astonishment as the woman who had orchestrated my family's rejection came apart before my eyes. He's been so angry since losing his job, she continued between sobs. Drinking too much, scaring the kids. My father cut us off completely when the investigation started. No one from our old social circle will even take my calls. The children had turned from the window, watching their mother with wide, frightened eyes. I went to them, kneeling to their level. Hey, would you two like to see the kitchen? My housekeeper just baked cookies. There's milk, too. After getting a nod from Amanda, I asked one of my staff to take the children to the kitchen. Once they were gone, Amanda continued, her voice hollow. I encouraged Jake to take that money. I wanted to maintain our lifestyle. When things started falling apart, I convinced him we could fix it before anyone noticed. She looked up at me, mascara streaking her cheeks. I destroyed your relationship with your brother. I called you trash. And now I'm the one with nothing. The raw honesty was more than I had expected from her. Why tell me this now? Because hitting rock bottom shows you what's real, she whispered. And nothing about my life with Jake has been real for a very long time. My parents sat frozen, clearly unprepared for Amanda's confession. The narrative they'd built with Jake and Amanda as the golden couple, and me as the jealous troublemaker, was collapsing before them. I'll help you, Amanda, I said quietly, for the children's sake. But you need to make your own choices about your future. She nodded, wiping her tears. I don't expect your forgiveness. I wouldn't forgive me either. After Amanda went to join her children, I turned to my parents. Did you hear what she said? About encouraging Jake to take the money? About destroying my relationship with him? Dad looked away. People say things when they're upset. She's telling the truth, I insisted. The truth you never wanted to see because it was easier to make me the villain. My mother's hands twisted in her lap. We didn't know what to believe back then. Jake was so adamant. You chose to believe the worst about your daughter without ever asking for my side, I said, feeling an old pain resurface. You let him hit me and then blamed me for it. Dad finally met my gaze. I didn't know how to handle it. Jake had always been volatile. Easier to placate him than confront him. Even at me expense? Especially at your expense, Mom whispered, shame finally visible in her expression. You were always the strong one, the responsible one. We knew you'd be okay somehow. I wasn't okay, I said simply. I was heartbroken, homeless, abandoned by everyone who should have protected me. For the first time, my father's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, Vivian. I failed you as a father. I've known it for years but was too proud to admit it. The apology 8 years late, but finally spoken, broke something open between us. Not forgiveness, not yet, but a path toward it became visible, where before there had been only a wall. Over the following weeks, I helped my family rebuild their lives, not by giving handouts, but by creating structured support with clear expectations. Jake eventually returned, chastened after his outburst, and accepted my terms for employment. Amanda filed for separation, moving with the children into an apartment I helped furnish while she trained for a paralegal position. My parents moved into a modest condo near their old neighborhood, attending weekly family therapy sessions with me as we slowly, painfully rebuilt trust. Dad worked part-time in Phoenix's maintenance department, finding purpose in physical work and honest earning. Aunt Linda became the family's unexpected anchor, her straightforward wisdom helping navigate complicated emotions. She moved into the guest house on my property, creating a buffer and bridge between my independent life and my healing family connections. I established the Phoenix Foundation with part of my company profits, providing resources for survivors of family estrangement and abuse. Through this work, I met others with similar experiences, forming a community of understanding that helped heal old wounds. 1 year after my family appeared at my gate, I hosted a different gathering at my oceanfront mansion. Tara was there, still my closest friend and brilliant business partner. Sarah and Mark brought their warmth and unconditional support. My parents attended, our relationship still fragile but genuine. Jake came alone humbler, working steadily through therapy to address his anger and entitlement. Amanda and the children visited briefly, their new independence suiting them better than their former pretensions. Most importantly, the gathering included the chosen family I had built during those years of estrangement, friends who had supported me unconditionally, mentors who had guided my growth, employees who had believed in Phoenix's mission. Standing on my terrace that evening, watching the sunset paint the Atlantic in gold and crimson, I reflected on the journey from that blood-splattered anniversary dinner to this moment of complex peace. I hadn't forgiven everyone fully, nor had all wounds healed completely. But I had claimed my worth, built something meaningful from pain, and learned that family both born and chosen requires truth, boundaries, and mutual respect to flourish. The frightened young woman who left town with $20 had become someone she could be proud of, not because of wealth or status, but because she had refused to let others' cruelty define her story. What would you do if someone who hurt you deeply came back asking for help when you were in a position of strength? Would you lock the gate, or find a middle path between rejection and exploitation? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might find strength in it. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it brings some comfort to anyone navigating their own path through family pain toward healing and self-discovery.